Approaching, Connecting, and Closing. This is a training on overcoming the limitations that hold you back from having the dating life that you want to have. My name is Damon Cart, and this is Life Mastery Gym. Let's jump right into this. So, I want to make sure you're in the right place. So, who is this training for? Well, you're in the right place if you're a single man looking to have more choice and abundance with the women you're dating or the women you're not dating. In some cases, you might not have a dating life at all. It might be non existent. I've been there, I know what that's like. And then I've also been in a place where, yeah, I'm dating, but I'm not really happy with my dating life. I feel like I'm just settling with whatever I'm getting from, just whatever's around me, and that's not a very good feeling, and it's actually not good for the women you're dating either, because you're just not as interested. So you want more choice, you want more abundance, you want to be dating the women who you really, really desire. This is also for you if you're a single man who wants to date women who are out of your league. Now, I know I'm not supposed to say that, right? We're not supposed to talk about people being out of our league, because no one's out of our league. We're all equal. Yes and no. I mean, when it comes down to basic human value, yes, there's no comparing. We're all of equal value, but there is a status thing going on. With you can try to ignore it, but it does exist, and we do have a feeling of like people being out of our league. So, and women have the same feeling, or they experience the same thing. Wouldn't you like to date women who you feel like are unreachable? Maybe that's a nicer way of putting it. So by the end of this training, you're going to feel like dating beautiful women is not only possible, but you're going to wish you had started doing what I'm going to teach you here a long time ago. I know I wish I knew this stuff a long time ago. I think my life would have been very different. So, as a result, if by the end of this training you believe you can date women that you once thought you could never date, would you say our time here is well spent? Good. So, what do we all want? Both men and women want to feel like they're dating someone above them. However, that means to you. What does that mean to you? There's even a word for it. It's called hypergamy. It's basically marrying someone of superior class. Both men and women experience this. Both men and women want to date someone who they feel like in some way is out of their league, better than them, unreachable, inaccessible, because that's the ultimate validation. And who can blame us? We always want to feel like we're getting more than we pay for. We want to feel like we're getting the best deal possible. So, how are you going to do that? Well, let's talk about what's on the agenda for today. Using NLP and anything else that will create the quickest way for men, regardless of what you look like and regardless of how much dating experience you have, to jumpstart your social life by having as many dates as you choose to have with gorgeous women. If I could show you a way to do this with a bit of practice, would you do it? That's really the big question here. This stuff will work for you. Everything I'm going to show you has worked amazingly well. Some of it's so simple, you're going to be like, really? It's really that simple. And yes, it really is that simple. You just need to do it. You have to do it and stick to the basics, and then the basics will turn you into a master. You will go advanced at a certain point when you just get the basics down really well. So here's what I need from you. My goal here today is to show you how to get more dates than you even have time to go on. And that's exactly where I got to in my life. And if I do that for you, will you promise me that you will come back and tell me that it works for you? If I show you how to have more success with women than you thought possible, will you promise me to actually do it? If so, tell me yes right now in the chat box. Awesome. So, what I'm going to show you will take you out of your comfort zone. There's no getting around this. But if you wish to have the abundance with women that you want, then will you commit to me to being okay with getting out of your comfort zone, which is where all transformation happens, and overcome feeling rejected by women once and for all? I mean, this is the absolute truth of it. If you want any sort of change, if you want to have something you don't have now, it takes going into some sort of discomfort, because we're changing things up. We're unseating old ways, old beliefs, old habits. But this is exactly where transformation happens. And that's what I hope you came here for today. You want that change. So I'll give you a little bit of background on me. My journey started in college. I was very introverted, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to college. Nobody knows me. It's like a fresh start, and I'm gonna easily meet and date women. Well, of course, I got there and that didn't happen. Why? Well, because you have to put yourself out there. If you stay quiet and you're sitting in a corner, not meeting anyone, no one knows who you are. It's like trying to sell a product without actually marketing it. But I did start to get somewhat good at this. I started putting myself out there. I started meeting women. I started dating, started coming out of my shell. And as soon as I started doing that, I settled down. Someone came into my life and I thought, oh, well, this is really good. I'm not going to let this go. So 7 years later, I got married to that same woman. And then 8 years later, I got a divorce. After 15 years of not dating, I was in I was on the market now for the first time in 15 years. And yes, it was very scary. I was 37 years old and I was like, I don't even know what to do anymore. I don't know what dating's like anymore. I don't even know what dating is like at this age. But I wasn't going to let that stop me because I wanted to figure this thing out. But unfortunately, I jumped right into a rebound relationship with a beautiful but narcissistic woman who played me like a video game until I had had enough. So this is very common if you've been in a relationship for a long time, if you've been married, you get a divorce and the first thing you feel like doing is jumping right back into that situation because that's what's comfortable and that's what's familiar. But it's usually, the worst thing because they always say the rebound relationship doesn't work. It's even worse if the other person you're in the relationship with is rebounding as well, which is what happened here. So I decided that I would take charge of this area of my life once and for all, and I wouldn't settle. And by what I mean here by settle is not that I wouldn't go monogamous with one woman again and be in a long-term relationship. More like if I'm going to do that, this is going to be a great woman. This is going to be a great relationship, and I'm not settling for anything less than exactly what I want in a woman. But the truth is, I didn't know really what I wanted in a woman anymore. That's how clueless I was after my divorce. So my problem was the same as most men. Not only did I not want to date just whoever was around me, I couldn't. Most people date their coworkers. If you're in school, you date the other students. Well, my case was I owned my own business and I wasn't going to date my employees and I wasn't going to date my clients. So I was a single divorced dad with no real social life, no social connections, and no means to date women who were even just around me. I was either at home or I was in my office. So in order to find the right woman, it was going to take dating a lot. And I was up for doing this for years. I was like, okay, I'm going to date as many women as I can. I'm going to turn over as many rocks as I can, really understand what I want, really understand women better than ever. If this takes years, it takes years. I will find that woman. I know she's out there. I started approaching 7 to 10 women a week. And actually, earlier on, this was an average that I was doing later. There were some days that I approached up to 50 women in one day. Well, if you do the math on this, I have approached over 1,000 women. And it was hard. I endured a lot of rejection and emotionally crashed several times. I mean, there were times where I felt like crawling up in a fetal position and just crying because of, you get hit with that rejection enough times and you let it get into you and it starts opening up these old wounds. But there's actually an opportunity here. And that opportunity is to heal those old wounds and become stronger because those wounds never quite healed. And what I'm going to show you is a way to get around this. And I got stronger and I became more extroverted. And not only did my social life take off, my life in general took off. And this is an amazing thing that you'll see once you start breaking through these limitations that were self imposed about women and meeting women and dating them. You will start to see that other areas of your life start breaking wide open. You start to generalize that understanding that limitations are not real. So things really start to take off. Now, I never thought that I was going to have a YouTube channel and that I would talk to a camera and put myself out there. I never believed that I was going to be extroverted enough to do that. So this used to be called NLP Gym, my YouTube channel. I created over 600 videos. Like I said, I don't think I would have been able to do this had I not broke through my shell and became extroverted in the ways that I wanted to become extroverted. I don't think it's necessary for an introvert to become an extrovert, but it is necessary for an introvert to cultivate extroverted skills. And that's what I did here. And then I was doing a lot of training, a lot of NLP training. If you know who these people are, this means something. If you don't know who these people are, it doesn't mean anything. People like Robert Dilts, Robbie Steinhaus, Steve Gilligan, they're all heavyweights in the NLP world. And I started to do a lot of training with these people and became friends with them. Also here again, Robert Dilts, L. Michael Hall, and Judith Delosier. Again, if you know these people are, this is a big deal. If you don't, maybe if you're into NLP, you might want to look them up. And then also the infamous Dr. Richard Bandler, who was a co-founder of NLP. I did training with him as well. Quite a character. If you don't know who he is, just the entertainment value alone is worth watching this guy and listening to him. But of course, he's also quite brilliant. What I started doing is traveling more and having more romantic adventures, or having romantic adventures at all. This was something I'd always fantasized about. I love the idea of traveling the world, taking my work with me, and having these romantic adventures. And so I decided to start doing that. I was like, okay, I'm breaking through these limitations. What stops me from doing the other things that I want to do? Nothing. So I got out there and started doing that. This right here is of me in Budapest, Hungary, getting some work done. I think I was editing a video here. And when I would travel, I would approach women in foreign countries, and it opened up many doors, creating many stories that I cannot repeat here. Let's just call it research. Like I had traveled before, but I wouldn't have any of these romantic adventures again, because, a woman's not going to come up to you and say, "Hey, I noticed you're a traveler and let's hook up." It just doesn't happen that way. But I got over my fears of approaching women. So when I go to foreign countries, I would do the same thing. And it was amazing. I got invited to parties, to clubs, just by putting myself out there, and had some really amazing, wonderful stories to take with me for the rest of my life. Things have not slowed down. They have evolved. My life is becoming more and more of exactly what I want it to be. And again, it's whenever I feel like I'm limiting myself, I just think about all the things that I've done, how I've broken through those limitations, and just apply it to whatever it is that I'm working with. And you can do the exact same thing when you start breaking through these limitations. And here's me in Budapest shooting videos for my YouTube channel in Budapest, Hungary, with my assistant, and also with traveling and going to conferences and summits. I meet some really interesting people. If you watch YouTube at all the past few years, you've seen this guy. His ads come up constantly. They're a bit annoying, but he's actually a pretty nice guy. This is Ty Lopez. And then here's some other people. Again, if you don't know who these people are, it's not a big deal. But if you do, it's kind of a big deal. Jack Connie of Patreon. He's a wonderful musician, very creative artist, and incredible entrepreneur who created Patreon. And then Zach King, another YouTube celebrity, which is cool. Whenever I go, because I'm a YouTuber, I get to go to these conferences and meet other YouTubers, which Zach is much more famous than I am. I'm not really famous, but he is. He's got millions of subscribers, does amazing things, magical illusions on video. And then also I meet really cool people like this, Jay Shetty, who is an incredible marketer and entrepreneur, but also has incredibly uplifting messages. He was a monk at one time. If you are on Facebook at all, you've seen this guy because videos come on all the time. Also has millions of subscribers and followers. And then this is the jester of self-improvement and personal development, JP Sears. Again, if you're in personal development and self-up, you've seen this guy. His videos are hilarious. He's done videos on like, what if meat eaters spoke like vegans? And then he did a yoga one where he's a yoga Instagram yogi. Absolutely hilarious. Met him a few months ago. When I was going through life, doing all these things, breaking through these limitations, having these adventures, something started to happen. Actually, a few things started to happen. I quit. Mainly, I quit doing the approaches. I quit approaching women. I ran out of energy. I was really exhausted. And here was a strange thing that I did not expect. Approaching wasn't getting easier, it was getting harder. And I didn't understand this, because most things you think the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? The more videos you do on YouTube, the easier making videos becomes. The more you get up on a stage and talk to people, the easier it gets. For some reason, this wasn't working the same way when it came to approaching women. I was getting tired and I was getting exhausted, and then finally I quit. And this also happened. My mentor, Steve Andres, legendary NLPer, was passing away. He did pass away last year. He mentored me for years, and he endorsed me to teach his self-concept model. And the only person he's ever endorsed for that. And because he was dying, I went to him and I said, I really want to make this self-concept model into a digital training, an online training. And I wanted his blessing. And he gave it to me. And while I was creating that training, I discovered something that had always been there. I've been using these techniques and these processes for years, but somehow I missed it. Somehow I didn't make this connection with doing this and approaching women. And I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later. So I buried myself in work, which was mainly creating that training that I got Steve's blessing for. My dating life dried up, of course, because I stopped doing approaches, and I work mainly from home. Like I said, I wasn't going to date my clients, wasn't going to date my employees, so everything dried up. However, my business did prosper, but after a few months, I couldn't ignore that something was definitely missing. When that you don't have that human interaction, you don't have sex. It just feels like there's something really missing in your life. I wanted to date again, but I didn't want to play that game anymore. I knew that if I could, I would start up, and I knew what the whole process, how this would all go down. I just didn't want to repeat that. So as I completed that online training for transforming yourself, I realized something I had never tried. And what that led to was, well, this. So you might have guessed my assistant is also my girlfriend. She's also 20 years younger than me. And I really didn't think that this was going to work. I did not think that this was the relationship that I was looking for, but man, was I surprised. A year later, we're still together and it's still working. And again, I'll talk more about how this all came to be and how you can do this as well. And that becomes the real question, right? Can you do this? You may be wondering if you can or can't do what I'm going to share with you today, but I assure you, it's more a question of will you do this? I know you can do this. No two people will have exactly the same results, but if you do what I teach, your life will never be the same again. So I promise you, if you're getting 0 dates right now, having half the dates I had at the peak of what I was doing would be more than enough for most people. I was a little obsessive, but you don't need to be that way to really get this down and be able to do it. So your concern though is valid, because what you really want to know is, will this time be different? Will you finally get the solution you've been looking for? Now, especially last night, I had people on who had studied pickup, who had read books, had maybe got online trainings, and they had never made it work. You might be in the same situation. You're wondering, okay, will this work? I've seen the other stuff. I've tried the other stuff. It didn't work, but you're still looking for that solution. So I believe you can do this. And as we go through the presentation today, I'm going to show you how this unique approach will work for anyone from all different backgrounds with each of your unique set of challenges that you bring to the table, because everybody's a little different. So look for that, and it should help you see that you, in fact, can do this. And why will this time be different? I watched other guys get all the women they wanted, and I kept thinking to myself, am I not good enough? This is often what we do to ourselves as men. Know that you're enough, even if you don't believe it. You will soon if you do what I teach you here. Some of you are afraid to fail, to get rejected, to experience shame and humiliation when it comes to women, so you don't even try. Moving beyond your fear will set you apart from 90% of men, because the truth is that most men suffer from that exact same fear. And when you step into that 10% and become a fearless man, do you think women will notice? Hell yeah, they will. At first, you really got to put yourself out there, but once you start to gain that confidence through experience, women will start to pick up on that. But don't count on that right at first, when we'll talk more about this. Maybe you wonder about the morality of this, especially in the time of Me Too. I struggled with this as well. I wasn't sure, is it okay to do this? Is it okay to just approach a woman out of the blue? Put it this way, you have a sex drive, and that is perfectly normal. It ensures the survival of the species despite the meanings culture and society have manufactured about it. This is not about harassment, power, deception, or domination. It's about exploring positive, intimate, and sexual experiences with women, and there are many women who want to explore this with you as well. And if there are women who you approach who don't, then you just say, okay, these are not the women you're looking for, and you just move on. It's no big deal. All right, so I'm going to show you some testimonials here, because you might be wondering still, is this going to work? And these are not testimonials for what I'm teaching here today. I'll explain why later, that I'm not putting those out there. What I want you to just get a sense of is that I have clients, I have students, and my programs work. I keep working on my programs until they get the effective results that is needed, that the people who are taking them want to get. So right here, this is Kevin. It is with great pleasure that I write this testimony of support for Damon and his NLP practitioner training. In the time I worked with Damon's online training, he provided great insights and wisdom for me. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you get the idea. This is also Peter. He's actually one of my top students. He's done incredible things. And just by doing what I told him to do and doing it without hesitation. I mean, if I would say, Peter, go try this, he would jump on it right away. And he ended up turning his life around overnight. His coaching practice turned around overnight. He was living with his mom, working a crappy night shift job. And within a few months, he quit the job, moved into his own apartment, and he's been doing amazing things ever since. This is Klaus. He's part of my membership program, overcame some fears that he had had before that were holding him back. He just used the system I showed him, and then he overcame the fear. And then Jessica, something I do a lot of is values elicitation, and she's in my membership program as well. Just a simple values elicitation changed everything for her. All right, so why might this not work? What I'm going to show you today. Well, if you expect different results than what you're already getting, if you do nothing different than what you're already doing, then it's not going to work, of course. And then a lot of people do this. One of my mentors says, real education hasn't happened if behavior doesn't change. And that's exactly true. So you can take in all the information you want, but if you don't do anything different, you're not going to get different results. It's not like just the knowledge is going to change things. So you have to do something. It won't work if you think it's necessary to deceive women in order to succeed with them. It's the same thing in sales. If you deceive your customers, you're going to lose all your customers, and you're not going to have a business. The same goes with women, and you don't want to deceive them. You don't need to, first of all. Deception is only going to backfire on you. It's going to work against you. And you want repeat business with women. You want to go on a second and third date, especially if you like them. And then if you decide you don't want to be intimate with them, it's still nice to be friends with them because usually they have hot friends as well. And if you're a good guy and you're not lying to women, these women will want to introduce you to their friends. This won't work if you're waiting for women to come to you. That can happen later. It's not going to happen at first. So don't think that it will. Don't rely on that. This will work for you if you have an open mind and a willingness to try something new. It will work for you if you don't blame others for what you don't have. This happens so often. And you'll see this when you start dating a lot. Your guy friends who are not dating, you might get some strange reactions from them. They might start blaming, other things like, oh, you're doing things that are not right, that are immoral or something like that. You will get so many different reactions, and that's anytime you succeed at anything. And I've had people come to me, especially clients who are like, my brother's acting strange around me now, or my parents are acting strange around me now. And it's because a lot of people don't know how to handle other people's success. They get jealous, they don't realize it, so they start blaming them or blaming all kinds of other things for why their situation is different and they can't succeed like you are. Don't blame other people. Take responsibility for your situation. And this will work for you if you don't take yourself too seriously. Now you got to imagine you got to, to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. So you're going to get rejected. It's going to happen when you make approaches. It's going to happen. It usually is not a bad thing. Women just say, hey, I'm not interested. And it's like, yeah, it's cool. It's okay. And in order to do that, you need to not take yourself too serious. And this is something I had to struggle with quite a bit. And I found the less serious I took myself, the easier this got. Women pick up on that. They like a guy who's not going to be too serious. And it's just a really pleasant quality to have. So, on this webinar, you're going to discover a detailed breakdown for the framework I used to turn more than 1,000 approaches into dates with women who were way out of my league, how to have an unfair advantage over the men competing for her attention, a mistake nearly all men make with women that will get the door slammed in your face every time. I'm also going to give you a bonus at the end that I wasn't going to put in this training, something no one else is teaching, and it will completely blow your mind. I love this quote by Archimedes. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. Well, your lever is your big why. If your why is big enough, that means your lever is big enough. You can make anything happen. And you'll see that it's not just about having lots of women in your life. When you get there, you'll realize, okay, I've got what I wanted. Now what? So once you fulfill that, you'll feel something you've never felt before, a freedom to pursue your highest ambitions. And that's what I was talking about. Once you break through something this extraordinary, because for most men, this is it, right? We want lots of women, or we want that special woman, or we want that great woman, and we also want to succeed, right? Those are usually our two biggest goals in life, to be very successful and to have the choice with women or with that special woman that we want. And once that happens, man, look out. Everything starts breaking wide open in your life. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. It's called, like I said, approach, connect, and close. We're going to talk about approaching women you desire, connecting with women rapidly, asking her out for a date, and getting her phone number. And then I'm going to give you a bonus mystery Jedi lesson. That's really the NLP, the core of the NLP stuff here. Okay, approaching women that you desire. What's the importance of this? Well, it should be pretty obvious, but it really amazes me how many men don't do this. Nothing can happen until you make contact with her. Dating apps give you the illusion that you don't have to risk anything because there's no approach, but you have to make contact somehow. And that's what I will refer to as the approach. So, any first contact with a woman is what I call the approach, whether that's online or whether that's in person. And with the online thing, if you're my age, I'm 41, especially with things like Tinder, I mean, the cards are really stacked against you because really what Tinder is, it's like window shopping. A lot of these dating apps, it's like window shopping. So even though women might love who you are, love your personality, you don't get to express that on Tinder. The best you can do is some really nice pictures, but why would they go with you when they can go with like a much younger guy? Or if you're not the best looking guy, well, of course, the best looking guy is going to get the most women. And you got about 70% or 75% of the people in these dating apps are men and 25% women. So the odds are way against you on those. And I'm not saying don't do it. And I had some success with it, but in general, if you rely on this, you're going to limit yourself severely. So everything depends on this first step, the approach. If there's no approach, there's no date. So imagine you're at a coffee shop, a gorgeous woman steps up right next to you while you're loading up your coffee with cream and sugar and whatever shit you put in your coffee. I like to drink mine black. So I don't see how people can do that. But anyway, that's what you're doing because that's what a lot of people do. Now you want to say something to her, but you don't. The opportunity passes and you say to yourself, next time. But next time you're still not going to do anything, are you? How many times has something like this happened? How would you like to change that story? Imagine turning that moment into a conversation where you get her phone number and a date. Next time, that's what you're going to do. And you are closer than you think. You're always closer than you think. Why? Because you're a human being and you have everything that I'm going to teach you. You have all of this inside of you. This is natural. It's not unnatural. I actually took a boot camp. If you've studied the pickup thing at all, if I told you who this person was and their company, you would know exactly who I'm talking about. It was terrible. All their stuff is based on what they call indirect game, which where you go through like all these processes and saying all these funny things and these fake openers and all this stuff. It's so methodical, so many steps, and what they keep telling you is, well, you're not as close as you think you were with her, and you need to go back to steps 7 and 19 to make this work, and you didn't do that. And so they're trying to make you feel like it's on you, and it's not their bullshit technology that's not working. You already have the technology inside of you to make this work. It's built into you. It's called your sex drive and your human nature, and your just overall ability to connect with people, which you've been doing since you were born. We're going to break this down. I'm going to want you to do what most men won't do, the right kind of compliment. Be bold, not arrogant, and communicate your intent. So, what do I mean by do what most men won't do? Is this embarrassing or humiliating? Absolutely not. I want you to approach during the day. Avoid approaching at bars and clubs. If you see a hot woman in a bar or a club, I'm not saying you shouldn't approach her. Go ahead and do it. But I don't want you to make this your regular place where you're going to do approaches because you're going to get the most rejection here because the majority you have so much competition. This is where people see that approaching women is acceptable socially, even though it's really acceptable socially in most places to introduce yourself to anyone, no matter where you are. But we always think bars and clubs are the place to do it. It's the worst place to do it. Mixing alcohol into this situation makes it harder. You're competing with a bunch of other guys and she's already got her guard up. When she goes out to bars and clubs, she's already thinking, yeah, I'm going to get hit on a lot. And so it's just not a good situation for you. This is the worst situation you can actually approach women in. Approach her in public when there are people around. Why? Because it is a little odd to approach a woman, with the intent to ask her out in broad daylight in public. So she will probably be a little surprised about that. But she will feel safe if there are people around. You don't want to corner her in a dark alley and say, "What's your phone number?" That's going to scare her, and she's going to not want to give it to you. And the only way she will is if she's afraid of you, and that's not what you want. So if there are people around, then it's sort of like, okay, well, this is okay. She can talk to you. You're not a scary person because if she needs help, if you are a scary person and she needs help, she's in public. There are people around, so she will be more relaxed. Approach only the women you find most attractive. You'll hear things in the whole pickup world like, go do some warm up approaches. Go approach women who you don't think are that attractive because it's easier. I don't agree with this, and I used to try that because I had coaches who would say that, but I would get my worst rejections when I would do that. And after a while, I started to realize, you know why? Because women know it. Women know it when you're really attracted to them and when they're not. Most of them do. Women are very intuitive. So if I'm approaching a woman and I'm not really attracted to her and I'm doing this as a warm up, she kind of knows it. Like she kind of feels that I'm not that attracted to her and I'm kind of going through a process. And I had some of my worst rejections. So this actually harmed me. Like I didn't want to approach anymore because I think, well, if I approached a woman who was less attractive and she just rejected me, then when I go approach that much more attractive woman, of course she's going to reject me. And that really wasn't the case. I would approach women who are very attractive and they could feel that I was very attracted to them. And that feels good. It feels, like they're wanted, that they're desired. And like I'm going to make a lot of sales comparisons and business comparisons to this. When I show a client that I really want their business, they're more likely to give it to me than if I pretend like, or if I'm cold about it and just kind of like, well, whatever, nobody wants to work with somebody like that. So you want her to feel your attraction. This is very important. It's very sexy as well. All right, the right kind of compliment. You always want to start with a compliment that shows your intent. So when you approach a woman, and I know a lot of guys do this, they try to approach with one of these indirect openers like, I don't even want to say some of the the terrible openers that I said. I mean, they weren't terrible. They just weren't communicating why I was talking to the woman. It's like this idea, well, I can pretend like I'm interested in something else, and then I flip it on her suddenly, and then then I seduce her. That's a silly way to go about it. Let her know why you're there from the beginning. Don't go and approach her and ask her for directions or ask her, what are the some good restaurants in the area, or if you do that and then you start trying to strike up a conversation, she's going to be confused. She's going to be like, okay, does he really want to know directions or does he want to talk to me? Is he interested in me? And that confusion is not sexy at all. What you want to do is state your intent right away. And how you do that easily is a compliment. If you compliment her on her blouse, on her eyes, or something like that, she knows why you're there. She knows you're attracted to her. And try to make it about something she's done, like her style rather than something she was born with, like her eyes. Now, when in doubt, like this is what I would try to do. I would try to compliment on her on something that she did, like her clothing, her hairstyle, something like that. Or even I even complimented a woman on the way that she walked because I found the way that she walked to be very sexy. So that's all stuff that she's doing. If you compliment her on things like she was born with, like her eyes or her beauty, that's a little objectifying. Now, it's okay to start that way because when in doubt, like if I couldn't think of a compliment on something she had done, sure, go ahead and compliment her physically. But if you do that, do it only once. Don't keep complimenting her on her physical appearance because then she'll start to be like, okay, well, he's not really interested in who I am. He's just interested in getting with me. It's okay to do it the first time, but don't do it again. Look for ways to compliment her on things she's done, and that'll go much further with her. Avoid compliments that sound sexual far now. And when you're in the beginning stages, you don't want to sound like you're that's exactly what you're going for right from the beginning. However, when you get more advanced and you will be able to spot women who are that's the kind of attention they're looking for, you can do this. But it's kind of advanced. I would get good at this first before going there. Now be bold, but not arrogant. And like I said, communicate your intent. Most women, especially the intelligent ones, see right through arrogance for what it is, insecurity. Now, there's a lot of women who will go after bad boys, who will go after really arrogant men because they think that's what confidence is, and they will learn that it's not. They'll have a relationship that might even be abusive. They'll discover this. They'll find out that okay, there is confidence and then there's arrogance. Right from the start, be confident, not arrogant. If you're nervous, you might say, well, if I'm nervous and that's not confident, I can't do this. She'll see it and she'll know that I'm not confident. No, you can be confident even when you're nervous because you can own it. And it will show her that in spite of your fears, you had the courage to approach her anyway. And that's what courage is. Courage is not doing something because you don't have any fear. That's not courage at all. Courage is doing something in spite of the fear. And that's what you're communicating to her when you show that she can see that you're a little nervous. You can even say, hey, I'm a little nervous about this because I don't normally do this, but I had to come and meet you. You've got, beautiful eyes, or you have an amazing style. Own the nervousness, and that becomes confidence. If she looks uncomfortable, show her your social awareness by saying, "Hey, I know this is a bit strange," or you can come right out and call it out. "Do I make you uncomfortable?" Anytime you call something out like this, it deflates it. It makes it not so bad anymore. And even if you are making her uncomfortable, she'll say, "Well, no, you're not making me uncomfortable," because as soon as you said it, it will make it go away. And it also communicates to her that you're very socially aware and that you're picking up on her signals. This shows her that you're tuned into her, that you get it. Okay, hey, I know this is a little odd. She might be wondering if you're a psychopath if you come right out of nowhere and you're like, "I like you. Give me your number." She's going to be like, "Okay, this guy is strange." But if you're catching all the signals and you're even commenting on it, then she's going to go, "Okay, well, this guy knows what he's doing." My ability to approach and start a conversation with women jumped dramatically when I switched to doing it in public during the day rather than at night and in bars. It's so important that you switch to doing this. I know at first for me it was like, "Oh, this seems so strange. It just doesn't seem right." And now I can't even think about it doing it the other way anymore. Like, this is the best way to do it. And suddenly, the most beautiful women, women who wouldn't even look at me in a club, would now give me the time of day, pun intended, when they were out of that context. So when they're out of that club context and they're in a context where men aren't competing for her attention and she's going about the routine of her day, and for most people, their daily routine is not exciting, it's kind of boring. And suddenly, somebody out of the blue breaks that routine by doing something that doesn't happen to her very often, approaching her and striking up a conversation. This can be very exciting for women. And I've had countless women tell me that I just absolutely made her day or her week. Sometimes these women had boyfriends or husbands, but they were so thankful that I approached them, and it's a wonderful feeling. So even in rejection, because she's with someone else, you get all these positive vibes. Why? Because you're giving out positive vibes. When you give out positivity, that's normally what you get back. Yes, there will be some women who go, "What?" And they get weird and give you like a strange look or something like that. Those women just are not socially well adjusted, and that's just how it is for some women. But the majority of the women will, when you give out positivity, will return that positivity. I've never been called out for sexual harassment or anything like that. I mean, you're basically harassing women with compliments and positivity and, and being uplifting. That's not harassment. She's going to thank you. She's going to like it, regardless if she's interested or not. So, question or questions: are you finding this helpful? Can you see how this will make approaching women easier for you? When do you plan on starting doing this? All right, one down, three to go. And thank you for your responses there. All right, connecting with women rapidly. Well, what's the importance of this? And again, this should be obvious. You can start a conversation with anyone, but can you connect with them quickly so that they will like you, trust you, and be willing to meet you again? Without a connection, she will likely not give you her phone number, and there will be no date. When have you connected with someone quickly? You've met people, and suddenly, in just a short time, it was like you had known them for years. Imagine being able to create that experience when you want with any woman you meet. There is a process that happens when you meet someone, which has happened to everybody. You meet someone, and it's just unbelievable that in just a short time you feel like you've really bonded and connected with this person. That's a process that can be extracted and applied to any situation. Let's start with eye contact. You're going to listen with all of your senses, and you're going to challenge her, and then we're going to talk about touch. So eye contact, this is uncomfortable for most people. But when you hold steady eye contact until she looks away first, you're communicating confidence. Now, this is not the stare through her head to the back of her skull kind of stare. You don't want to focus your eyes on hers, rather you open your peripheral vision and gaze into her eyes. So open up your vision as much as you can. This is what we call bedroom eyes. It will make your eyes look more appealing, like you're more open to receiving information. And this is very attractive. A lot of this is happening on an unconscious level. And when she looks away, it's showing that you are confident with yourself. But most guys will look away first before the woman looks away. And just that starts to show her that you are really uncomfortable with yourself. So hold that gaze. Remember, don't stare. Just hold the gaze and let her look away first. This is very powerful. Listen with all of your senses. This is where the NLP comes in. Open your senses with your eye gaze. How many colors do you see, for example? Like we look at people's faces and we just kind of generalize, okay, the face is beige, the hair is brown. Well, start looking at her more deeply and see what colors are there that are more subtle in her hair and in her face. And she will feel this attention and she won't understand what exactly you're doing, but it will feel good to her because you're paying her more attention than probably anyone has in the past month. Notice her voice tone, not just the words she says. When does her voice tone change, go up, or what does it sound like? What does her skin feel like when you touch her hand to shake it? Can you smell her perfume or even her hair? It's not so important that you can actually smell it, but just that your senses are open to it. Most people, when they're having a conversation with someone, they're only thinking about what they want to say next. So they're not really paying attention to the person in front of them. When you do this, when you open your senses to them, they will feel this. And it feels really good because people love attention, and so you're giving them all this attention on many different levels, mostly on an unconscious level. She's not used to this, but she knows it feels good. And challenge her. You don't want to just agree with everything she says, especially if you have a different opinion. So if she says something like, I like doing this, and you go, oh yeah, I like doing that, or oh yeah, I have a friend who likes doing that. And, you don't want to be saying that. You want to just listen, but you don't want to just be like agreeing and nodding and saying yes to everything. Just take it in, ask her questions. You want to get more specific with your questions. You don't want to keep jumping topics. Like a lot of guys do that. They'll ask one question and then they'll jump to another question that's completely a different topic and then just keep doing this. Well, you're not really going deep with her. You're not really getting to know her. So when she answers a question or she gives you a piece of information, ask a more specific question and try to go more and more personal. I like asking questions like, well, like say, what it is she does for a living or what is she studying in school, and then she'll say it, and then ask maybe a more specific question. Okay, oh, so you're studying accounting. Well, what type of accounting specifically are you studying? Because I know there's different types. And then she might tell you, and then I'll try to take it more personal, like, oh, is this something you always wanted to do? Is it something you're really passionate about? Or did you always know since you were a kid that you wanted to be an accountant? So when you're doing that, she'll think about things when she's a kid. She'll think about things she's passionate about, even if she's not passionate about accounting or didn't want to be an accountant as a kid. That doesn't matter. What matters is you're going more personal with her, which will make her experience emotions, and she'll connect those emotions to you. And it'll feel like more than just a boring conversation. It's like, okay, yeah, we're going somewhere with this, and she's feeling things. This is what you want. So you want to occasionally share your similar experiences and opinions, but spend more time listening and being curious about her. Every time she shares an experience or an opinion, you don't want to follow it with your opinion or experience. Do that about every three things that she shares with you. You want to do some sharing because you don't want it to sound like an interrogation, like you're just constantly questioning her. You want to share some of yourself, but you want to put the attention primarily on her and what she's sharing with you. Now, touch is so important. We're told from the time that we're kids, keep your hands to yourself, don't touch. And it's creating, I think, a society of a no touch society. And we're forgetting how important touch is. So always shake her hand. That's the first touch. And hold it gently until she pulls it back first. This is very important. One thing, real quick, too, don't tap a woman on the shoulder. If you're walking by and you want to approach her, to get her attention, don't tap on her shoulder. You don't want her to feel your touch before she sees you. That can startle her and it will get you off to a bad start. First, she needs to see you. You extend your hand. You you hold her hand when you're shaking it, and just hold it and see how long she will let you hold it for. And this is, again, will create a little bit of awkwardness, just like the eye gaze. But this is good. She will experience an emotion. It will be a little dramatic, and that's a good thing. But as soon as she pulls away her hand, you let it go. So you're showing her that she's still in charge. You're not trying to push anything on her. You're not trying to pressure her. If she wants to pull away, you're not going to try to hold her back. You just go ahead and allow that to happen. So that will make her feel more comfortable. Here's the other thing too. It's a strange thing, but anytime you approach a woman, you want to stay in the approach for at least 2 minutes. For this is it's almost like clockwork. What is clockwork? 2 minutes. You're in for 2 minutes. She will start to get more and more comfortable with you. The first 2 minutes, it's still kind of a new thing. She's still not sure who you are or what's going on. But after 2 minutes, she will start to relax and become more comfortable. You want to try not to ask for the date before 2 minutes. I'll address this a little bit later. But anyway, you want to staying there for at least 2 minutes, even if it's not going well, even if it's awkward. A lot of men just bail within the first 2 minutes and they never get to see where this thing goes. They just get scared and they find a reason to run out of the situation. Don't do that. Stay in for at least 2 minutes. Now, you want to test by touching her midway between her elbow and her wrist to see how she responds. They did a study on this where they had two sets of waiters and waitresses at a restaurant. One group, they said, do not touch the client, your customer at the table at all. Just serve their food. And then the second group, they had it to where they told them to touch the customers between the elbow and wrist. And that group who did the touching had like double the tips as the previous group. So people don't even know it, how much they enjoy touch, even from people they don't know. And this is a safe place to touch. So if you touch her there, and you could just be in conversation, you go, hey, oh, let me tell you this. And you can just reach over and touch between the wrist and elbow. That's a very normal thing to do. If she recoils, then you know she's not comfortable with your presence yet. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Doesn't mean that you're not enough for her, or that she doesn't like you. It just means she hasn't gotten comfortable with you yet. Now, if she accepts your touch without flinching, she's comfortable with you. Then you can do more advanced touching, like going to her shoulder and then maybe to her neck, which gets very seductive and can be a lot of fun to play that game for her and for you. But you want to test this out first. You don't want to just jump into something like that. In order to discover this, everything that I'm teaching you here, I combined my NLP skills with coaching from pickup artists and lots of practice in real situations with women. This strategy is simple and tested repeatedly, so it works. Basically, I've just saved you a lot of time and frustration trying to figure this out. So, question: do you think that doing this instead of what you're currently doing is likely to yield a better result? Are you willing to promise me that you'll do this instead the next time when the next situation shows up? So think about that coffee situation. It doesn't have to be coffee, but you see a woman come next to you and there's a great opportunity right there. Will you promise me to do this instead of what you have been doing, which in most cases is nothing? Swear? Pinky swear? All right.